So I had an interesting little back and forth with the supporter. I have talked about the Kalam Cosmological Argument like so many times. But when he asked me about it looking through, I don't really seem to have like a dedicated video about it. I was like, that can't be right. Have I really never done this? I've talked about it here and there enough times, but apparently, yeah, there's no dedicated video for me on the Kalam. So I think it's about time that I did this. And so what I did was I asked for sort of a definitive video from William Lane Craig. Because I didn't want to respond to some random guy on the internet so people could think I was just, kicking the 98-pound weakling or whatever. Or just using an older video where they say, oh, that's just an older video, but he's refined it since then or whatever. So I was asking for something more modern and definitive. And what was linked to me was this 2-part video series. I think it's 2 parts. I wasn't able to find a third. What I thought I'd do, instead of my usual treatment, both to kind of save time on my end and to kind of give you something new to look at, a new kind of format, and just a new insight into how I react to these videos, I'm going to watch this cold. I have not seen these videos, and I'm going to be reacting to them just as you see, cold from the start. Never done anything like that before, so it might be interesting. Now, there will be edits, of course. I'll do multiple takes, and I might have to stop to research something, but I promise I won't cheat. This is going to be me going through these videos for the first time. So we've got 2 videos here. The first one is 4 minutes long, the other one's 6 minutes. But Brandolini's Law being what it is, I don't actually know how long these videos are going to be. They'll probably be a lot longer, so we might do these as 2 separate videos. One for part 1, which is the scientific argument, and then part 2 is the philosophical argument. So given that, let's just get into this and see what Craig has to say. God, are you there?
Does God exist?
Does God exist? Yeah, so I'll probably be cutting out like a lot of the parts where it's just like me watching a whole bunch of it before I have to. I don't suspect I'll do much, though. It's a pretty short video, but maybe like the longer animated parts or whatever.
Or is the material universe all that is, or ever was, or ever will be? One approach to answering this question is the cosmological argument. It goes like this. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause.
Alright, so maybe it'll get into it, but I don't know if Craig's actually in this one or not. It's definitely from his YouTube page. But what you're seeing on the screen right now is the Kalam Cosmological Argument as it's given. And the first thing you notice is a weird sort of wording. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. Is there any other place in the English language where you use that phrasing? Begins to exist. Because I don't know of any, and it's a really weird way of saying it. And it came about that way because way back in the day when they were first formulating this, what they had said was everything that exists has a cause. The universe exists, so the universe has a cause. The problem with that was, of course, the whole idea of this is to shoehorn God in as the cause. The very obvious question that comes up is, okay, what caused God? Oh, well, God doesn't have a cause. Well, okay, you just destroyed your first premise there. Because we've got an example of one thing that exists, according to you, that doesn't have a cause. And if God doesn't have a cause, maybe the universe doesn't have a cause. And you can just save a step that way. So they stuck this in, whatever begins to exist. And if anything, all it does is make the argument a little more awkward. And if you've got to keep shoving in things like that, you might want to stop and think about whether or not it's a good premise in the first place. Spoiler alert, it's not. But we'll see what they say, or if Craig actually appears in this video or says it, or maybe they're just summarizing it or whatever. You know, if his ministry made this video. Like I said, it's on his website, so apparently this is William Lane Craig approved.
Is the first premise true? Let's consider.
And by the way, that's where we are. This is a perfect syllogism. so it's valid. We just need to evaluate its soundness by examining whether the premises are true. So, good so far.
Believing that something can pop into existence without a cause is more of a stretch than believing in magic.
Oh boy. And then well, I said it was a good start. It didn't take them long to screw it up, did it? Believing in something that can pop into existence without a cause is magic. Okay, first of all, didn't you just acknowledge that your whole idea of creation by God is magic? God's a magic man. That's what they keep trying to sidestep away from. But the fact is, no, there's no reason to believe that at all. Even if we saw something pop into existence, we wouldn't immediately think it was magic. We would think, there's a phenomenon that we don't know what happened. Let's examine it. That's the scientific mind as opposed to the religious mind.
At least with magic, you've got a hat and a magician.
Okay, see, now they're just attacking the premise.
And if something can come into being from nothing, then why don't we see this happening all the time?
Why necessarily would we?
No, everyday experience and scientific evidence confirm our first premise. If something begins to exist, it must have a cause.
Yeah, that's our problem. It's nothing of the kind. What this is a black swan fallacy. And the black swan fallacy, if you don't know what that is, it's like you see white swans your whole life. No matter where you go, all the swans are white. And so from that you conclude, hey, all swans are white. And if someone mentioned a black swan, you would say, well, there's no such thing. Then you go to Australia, where there actually are black swans, and you're like, hey, that's weird. But it does mean that black swans exist. That's why it's the black swan fallacy. So no, it's not a confirmation of our premise. Even if we had never seen anything come into existence without being caused, it still would not be a confirmation. But in fact, we have seen that. A lot of you know where I'm going with this. We know for a fact that constantly, all around you, all the time, virtual particles are being constantly formed. They're formed in pairs, a particle-antiparticle pair, so you're actually not violating the first law of thermodynamics. Because the energy budget of the universe is still constant because you're adding one and subtracting one. It's a particle and an antiparticle. Now, being opposites, they're attracted to each other, and then they fall in on each other, and since one's matter and the other's antimatter, they annihilate, and they just go away. And this is constantly just all over the place happening. We know it is because we've confirmed it with the Casimir effect, which, depending on how this video goes, I might have something else to say about. And then, of course, people talk about Hawking radiation. That's how that happens, so look that up too. But if you want another example, look up the pi field. Because back when they found the Higgs boson, you might have heard on the news that, oh yes, the Higgs field, that's how particles get their mass. The thing is, when you're looking at protons and neutrons, which are composite particles made up of smaller particles called quarks, they're made of 3 quarks, but if you add up the mass of those 3 quarks that you would get from the Higgs field, you don't get anywhere near the mass of a proton or neutron. What's going on? It's what's called the pi field. Pi is in the Greek letter pi, so look that up. Basically, in that region where the particle exists, there are all these other virtual particles constantly being created and destroyed, and some of those are going to be quarks. Now, they don't last long, but by the time they go away, other virtual quarks have popped into existence, and so the mass of the proton or the neutron isn't just the 3 real quarks, it's also all of the virtual quarks that are in its region. So these virtual particles are very real, they are completely uncaused. Premise 1 is false. And the thing is, I know this has been pointed out to Craig. Too many people have pointed this out. So this must either be propaganda being given to an ignorant audience, or just something they show to their flock to kind of keep them in bounds and keep them under control, and keep them from flying the coop.
But what about our second premise? Did the universe begin, or has it always existed?
Those are not the only 2 options, by the way.
Said that the universe has been here forever. The universe is just there, and that's all. first, let's consider the second law of thermodynamics.
Oh boy.
It tells us the universe is slowly running out of usable energy. And that's the point. If the universe had been here forever, it would have run out of usable energy by now.
See, the Big Bang is actually the start of entropy. You start from a singularity, from zero size, and you expand from there. As you expand, two things happen. Entropy starts rising, as it does, but the potential for entropy starts rising even faster. That's inflation. So the entropy that does exist in the universe isn't anywhere near the amount of entropy that could exist in the universe. And that remainder is the amount of energy that we can use. So no, this is no kind of limit on how long the universe has been around. It's only a limit since the Big Bang. And they're going to say, oh, well, the Big Bang is the beginning. We don't know that. We don't actually know that. There are a whole bunch of unknowns about the Big Bang. What we do know is that the Big Bang is start of space-time. And that kind of sounds weird, because how can there be something before time? That's an absurdity. So that's the sort of thing Bertrand Russell was talking about, and Stephen Hawking talked about this, is the fact that there was no event that began the universe. The Big Bang was not like a spark that set off an explosion or whatever. That's not what it was. It's an expansion of space-time. And if that's the case, you could trace it out and find out that the Big Bang was just a point in space-time like any other. And we just don't have the math right now to fully describe that. But it would be sort of like the North Pole. It's special to us for certain reasons based on our perspective, but ultimately it's just a point on the planet's surface like any other. And I mean, that's one possibility. Another possibility was that it was from a previous universal collapse. It collapsed in on itself in a point and then rebounded as the Big Bang. That's a theory that's been around for a while. That's another possibility. And we could just be in an infinite series of universes that are expanding and then crashing and expanding and crashing and expanding and crashing. And so if that's the case, the Big Bang isn't the beginning. There may not be a beginning. The idea of beginning might be completely meaningless in this context. Because what they always do is they always think about time just as the regular layperson does, and basically physics before Einstein. Where you just think of, and this is probably where Russell was coming from given the time he was operating in, but just that time runs along this single dimension and that's that. In Newtonian physics, time is a constant and distance is a constant. In relativity, they're not. The speed of light is the constant. And distance and time are relative. So you can't go thinking about time the way we normally do, where everything happens in a strict linear progression of cause to effect. Because on a cosmic scale, that's not how it operates. And they're just kind of stuck in that thinking, or they're hoping that you're stuck in that thinking, so you'll buy into their con.
The second law points us to a universe that has a definite beginning.
No, it doesn't.
This is further confirmed by a series of remarkable scientific discoveries. In 1915, Albert Einstein presented his general theory of relativity. This allowed us, for the first time, to talk meaningfully about the past history of the universe.
And it also allowed us to see distance and time not as constant, but as relative, which destroys their entire argument. So they're accepting of relativity, and yet they don't accept that part.
Next, Alexander Friedmann and George Lemaitre, each working with Einstein's equations, predicted that the universe is expanding.
We all know this part. I think I can skip it.
This means that scientists can no longer hide behind a past eternal universe.
Oh my God! Did you hear that phrasing? Scientists can no longer hide behind a past eternal universe? I think there's some projection going on there. Scientists aren't trying to hide anywhere with anything. They're just trying to discover what's going on.
There is no escape. They have to face the problem of a cosmic beginning. Any adequate model must have a beginning, just like the standard model.
Yeah, but does it really? The standard model doesn't tell us what went on at time zero. It breaks down at that point. It can go from the very moment after that, one plank into the universe, and tell us what's going on from there. It cannot explain that initial moment. So again, we don't know if that was a beginning or a continuation, or even if the concept of beginning doesn't even apply. And that's without even getting into models of quantum mechanics where there is no time, where time is a completely localized phenomenon, or even more like solid matter, an illusion but not a lie. There is a reality there, but it's not what it appears to be. So again, being stuck in probably not even a Newtonian view of time, probably Aristotelian, given how much these people really like to link themselves to Thomas Aquinas, who based everything he did on Aristotelian physics. That's how time works in Aristotelian physics. We know that's not how it works in the real universe. And they're just stuck in that. And so that's a big problem.
It's quite plausible then that both premises of the argument are true. This means that the conclusion is also true. The universe has a cause.
Well, no, you just said it was plausible that they're both true. Okay, maybe, but that doesn't prove the conclusion is true. That only proves that it might be plausible. And the conclusion is just that it has a cause. It doesn't say anything about what that cause would be. Whether it's a previous collapsing universe, or a collision of two membranes in 11-dimensional hyperspace, as M-theory says, where we would have the formation of our own 4-dimensional space-time as a 4-dimensional p-brane, a probability membrane. There are all sorts of possibilities. We have no idea if any of them are true. We have no idea how to test any of them. But they are possibilities. And as long as they are possibilities, you don't get to shoehorn your God in there. And even if we didn't think of any of these possibilities, even if we had no idea, you still wouldn't be able to shoehorn your God in there. That's a God of the gaps fallacy. Every bit of this is arguing towards the conclusion, just like the Kalam always is, just like Aquinas' 5 ways are, just like all of these other arguments for God are. They're arguing towards a conclusion, which is an enormous fallacy and just not allowed in logic.
And since the universe can't cause itself...
Wait, who said it can't? There are theories where the universe is its own cause. You see what I mean? They just throw these things out and they dismiss them because they're relying on your intuition to say, well, yeah, naturally, it sounds absurd. But the universe is under no obligation to behave in a way that makes sense to you. The universe just does what it does. But you see, that's what these people take advantage of. That's how they get you. Be aware of their lies.
Its cause must be beyond the space-time universe.
But what would that even mean? What does it mean to be beyond space-time? There are things that are beyond my house, but that's because there's space outside of my house. What if space ended at the boundaries of my house? What would it even mean to be outside of the house or beyond the house or anything like that? They never explain what these concepts are supposed to mean. They just throw them out there. But they're just like one of those random Deepak Chopra generators you have online. They're just profound enough to kind of make you go, ooh, but just confusing enough to not actually tell you anything at all. They're made to sound profound without giving you any information whatsoever. And they're ultimately just assertions that they never bothered to prove. And if they never bothered to prove it, I'm not under any obligation to disprove it. And that's the problem.
It must be spaceless, timeless, immaterial, uncaused, and unimaginably powerful.
How can it be powerful at all if it's spaceless, timeless, and immaterial? Forget the uncaused for just a second. Everything we know about power requires energy, and energy requires space-time. So how can you be powerful without space or time or material being? Again, they just throw these things out like it's supposed to make sense. You really stop and think about it, and it doesn't. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Much like God.
And that's just it. They've done absolutely nothing to prove God. They've just made this kind of weird thing and they've dismissed all of these things for no reason and left you with nothing. And then the final step is, oh, therefore God. They have nothing. They have nothing. I guess we'll see what the second video is all about, but I have been yammering for 45 minutes now. I'm going to be able to edit this down a lot because I also had some technical problems that I had to sort out. So I don't know how long this is going to be, but this is going to have to be 2 videos, as I suspected. And a lot of this is just me very quickly summarizing a lot of very complicated scientific concepts. That's Brandolini's law. It takes so much longer to respond to bullshit than it does to liars like William Lane Craig and his ministry to spew it. And that's what you always have to keep in mind. And that's why it's also important to support videos like these. So please, comments for the comment god, shares for the share throne. Please hit like, subscribe, and the bell. And of course, donate.pagosity.tv, because I guess I got to do this maybe tomorrow morning or maybe this afternoon if I can hack it. But yeah, sit here and yammer for another hour, edit it down to whatever, because I got another one of these to go through. The best way to keep me going is by making a donation of any kind or by becoming a regular supporter. Thank you so very much for watching. We'll get into the second part of this, which is about the philosophical argument. So until then, stay strong and be free.